All right, Spring Boot 4.0 is officially here, and believe me, it's a pretty big deal for the framework. So if you're a Spring developer, this is your technical guide to figuring out all the changes, navigating the tricky parts, and, of course, successfully migrating your apps.
You know, this isn't just one of those small, incremental updates. Nope. This is a real generational leap. Spring Boot 4 basically reimagines its entire architecture, it fully embraces the latest standards, and it introduces some seriously powerful new tools. So the big question is, are you ready for what's next? So in this explainer, we're going to walk through a really clear roadmap. We'll kick things off with the big picture. What even is Spring Boot 4? Then we'll get into the essential prep work. We're going to tackle those breaking changes head-on, explore the massive architectural shift to modularity, check out the cool new features, and finally, map out your direct path to a successful upgrade.
Okay, so what's the core identity of Spring Boot 4? Well, you can think of it as a complete reimagining, one that's built on modern, forward-looking foundations. Let's break down exactly what that means.
What's really telling here is that this is a complete platform refresh. We're talking a hard requirement for Java 17 now, a full jump to Jakarta EE 11 and its Servlet 6.1 baseline, and it's all sitting on top of the next-gen Spring Framework 7. But the single most important theme, the one we're going to keep coming back to, is that Spring Boot is now modular by design, and that changes a lot.
Right, before you even think about changing your parent POM to version 4.0, there's some really critical groundwork you've got to do. A smooth migration starts way before you change a single line of your build file.
The most important thing here is to start from a clean slate. Seriously, first get your project onto the latest 3.5.x release. That's going to make sure you have the most compatible dependency set right before you make the jump. And while you're at it, hunt down and get rid of any calls to methods that were deprecated in the 3x line, because trust me, they are gone in 4.0. And finally, just double-check your environment and your third-party libraries. Are they ready for Java 17 and Jakarta EE 11?
Okay, let's talk about the elephant in the room, the breaking changes. Look, every major release has them, and Spring Boot 4 is no different. Knowing what's coming is half the battle.
So here are some of the biggest removals. Undertow support? It's been dropped, simply because it's not yet compatible with that required Servlet 6.1 baseline. Those popular fully executable jar scripts are also gone, which actually makes sense. It favors the standard java-jar command, which is way more efficient in containers. And you'll start to see a trend with things like the Spring Session integrations for Hazelcast and MongoDB. Support is being handed off to the respective project teams to maintain themselves.
Now this is a massive one you're going to run into, the upgrade to Jackson 3. And this is a perfect example of a core breaking change. Just look at the group ID and the Java package names. They've completely changed from com.fastemer.jackson to tools.jackson. This means you're going to have to make code changes. Now the team knows this is a heavy lift, so they've provided a Spring Boot Jackson 2 compatibility module, which acts as a temporary bridge to give you a bit more time to migrate.
Okay, quick warning. This is going to break your tests. I guarantee it. In the past, @Spring Boot Test would just pull in a whole suite of testing tools by default. Not anymore. Now it's lean and mean. If you need mock MVC, you have to explicitly add @AutoConfigure mock MVC. Same goes for web test client and test res template. It's really a move to make you more deliberate about your test setup. Oh, and by the way, if you suddenly get compilation errors for test res template, it's because it's moved to its own artifact.
Now, let's get into what I think is the most profound change in Spring Boot 4, this fundamental shift to a modular architecture.
So, what does modularization actually mean in this context? Think of it like this. Spring Boot used to hand you this one giant, super heavy toolbox that had every single tool you could possibly need, whether you used it or not. Now it gives you a bunch of smaller, specialized toolkits. You just pick the exact ones you need for the job. And the result? Leaner applications and much clearer dependency trees, since every module lives in its own dedicated package.
And this new modular way of thinking is perfectly reflected in the starter pattern. It's just beautifully harmonized now. As you can see, for pretty much every main starter, there's now a dedicated test starter to go with it. So if you use Spring Boot Starter Web MVC in your main code, you'll use Spring Boot Starter Web MVC Test in your test code. It's a super consistent pattern that applies all across the board.
Now, to make the migration a little easier, the team did provide classic starters that kind of mimic the old monolithic behavior. But, and this is a big but, as this quote from the official guide makes clear, that's really just a temporary measure.
The long-term vision, and where you get the real benefits, comes from embracing these new, more explicit modular dependencies to build a leaner, more intentional application.
Okay, so after all that prep work and migration effort, what's the payoff, right? Let's check out some of the fantastic new tools and features you get with Spring Boot 4.
Oh, this is a great one for cutting down on boilerplate code. You can now define a client for an external REST API by just creating a Java interface and adding an annotation. Spring Boot handles all the implementation for you, which makes your code so much cleaner and more declarative.
Observability gets a huge boost with the new Spring Boot Starter OpenTelemetry. Just by adding this one starter, you get auto-configured metrics and traces exported right over OTLP. It's honestly become incredibly simple to get deep insights into how your application is performing.
And on the testing front, we get the new REST Test Client. It gives you this modern, fluent API for making assertions on your REST endpoints in your integration tests. It's a great successor to Test REST Template and works perfectly with both mock VC and a live running server. And of course, a major version bump brings a whole wave of upgrades across the entire ecosystem. You're getting the latest and greatest from all the core Spring projects like Framework, Data, and Security, not to mention major third-party libraries like Hibernate, Jackson, and the web servers themselves. This all translates to better performance, new features, and the latest security patches. Whew, we've covered a lot of ground. So let's pull it all together into a final summarized path forward for your migration.
Here it is, your step-by-step path to a successful migration. Start on 3.5.x. Clean up those deprecations. Then tackle your build file and adopt the new modular starters. Fix your tests by adding those necessary @autoconfigure annotations. Make a plan for migrating from Jackson 2 to 3. And then, once you're up and running, take some time to explore and adopt all the powerful new features.
You know, the move to a modular, modern core is really more than just an upgrade. It's a shift in philosophy. It encourages us to build more deliberate, lean, and maintainable applications. So, I'll leave you with this question to think about. With all these new architectural possibilities at your fingertips, how are you going to design and build your next Spring application?